What's happening, people? Welcome to Music Monday. Music Monday it is. And we were on the Wait album. And today I'm going to jump forward and grab that single that came out last week. A tune I wrote called Everyday Prayer. I don't want to forget about these singles, so we'll get back to Wade next week, but I want to get a hold of this one. Okay, Everyday Prayer. What is this song about? Let's just dive in. I wrote this song. I'm thinking back, it had to be close to 10 years ago. I was living in North Carolina. I can remember that. And that's where I got all the imagery from in the first couple verses, which I'll get into here in just a second. So, briefly, what is this song about? This song is about being grateful and thankful, really, and reflecting on that and, saying a little prayer for the good things that happen. And the twist on this thing is it's really not the obvious good thing. It's kind of I'm using examples in nature as a symbol for really taking a situation that might look chaotic or horrific or bad on the surface. And then when you look at it and examine it closer, you see that it's got a silver lining. There's something really cool and good and positive that came out of it. So let's talk about that first verse. There's a dying willow tree underneath the pond. So where'd all this come from? So right in front of my house there in North Carolina, if you looked off my sun porch, there was this pond in front of the house that my dad had built my mom for her birthday one year, a long time ago. And on the corner of the pond, there was this willow tree. And over the years, the water had kind of started to encroach into the water, or the water got up over the roots. And part of it was dying, and it had broken off into the pond. It was probably, it was dying. It wasn't going to make it much longer. A few weeks later, I was down there walking around that pond. I was thinking, this is kind of sad. That beautiful tree's it's not going to make it. And some of the branches and the bigger branches and limbs were all down in the water. And I got to looking at it, and I noticed that there was this giant black bass. And I mean, she must have weighed 5, 6, 7 pounds. She was pretty good size on the bed, on the spawn under these tree branches. I was like, wow, that's cool. I had the thought, the tree's dying, but at the same time, this tree is providing shelter because what had been happening in this pond, the river otters were coming out of the French Broad River and getting in this pond and eating every fish in it. I had probably 2,000 catfish in this pond I'd put in there. Those otters got in there, and once they found that, they went back, told all their friends. They came back. They cleared that pond out in 4 or 5 months. They had every fish in there. They were all gone. I looked down there one morning. There were 4 of them in there swimming, just having a big time, eating all my fish. So that's what the first verse is about, providing shelter for the great fish spawn. There again, the silver lining. I'm just using examples in nature to show how, the gratitude of one thing's is demise or loss is another thing's survival and success. The next verse, there's a 4-foot square under Martintown. What's this all about? Okay, Martintown is a reference to martin birds. I had one of those, you've seen these big martin houses people have up down south. They're a migratory bird, and I'd put one of those big houses up like 20 feet up in there. It had 12, 14 compartments in it, and the martins got in it, and I had it probably half full. And I went down there one day, and there was this gigantic black snake. I mean, the joker must have been 6 or 7 feet long. He was, huge. He got up in that martin house, and they had already had a bunch of babies, and he ate half of them before he came down. And I'm like, okay, how am I going to keep this from happening? So I went and cut a big, giant 4-foot diameter square of tin, and I fastened it up on that pole where the black snakes, they had to extend their bodies out to try to get over the tin. They couldn't extend their bodies out hanging upside down that far out to get over the tin. So when it says there's a 4-foot square under Martintown, and there are songs in the air, and of course that's the martins. If you ever listened to them when they're flying around feeding on bugs and stuff, they got these magical little songs they sing. It's pretty incredible. There are songs in the air when Satan ain't around. Satan, a biblical reference to Eve in the garden, using the snake again coming up the pole, eating all the birds, the representation of something evil and not good. So here again, the 4-foot square is the blessing of somebody who came in and put this barrier between this and the snakes. It all happened. It was just sitting right there. That's where I got it. Last verse is really, talking about things coming to pass. The clouds fly at half mast. When your life gets too heavy, you're too anxious, you're overwhelmed, you're depressed, you can't figure out how to make sense out of anything. it's a biblical reference, but it's actually not in Scripture. The part that says this too shall come to pass. It's kind of right there with you. The thought that hey, the good Lord doesn't give you any more than you can handle. It's one of those kind of things. Although it's actually, I don't think it's in Scripture anywhere, but it does kind of have a biblical reference. So that's what that's about. The sun's breaking through the clouds, and hey, just be patient and wait long enough, and everything will work itself out for the best. All right, guitar players, this is a cool tune. First of all, it was kind of like Dad Gad. Take your E and B and drop them down to D and A, and then but not your first sixth string. Don't take that one down to D. Just leave it in E. Then put a capo on the second fret, A position, which is the key of B. And it's got a ton of chords in it, backwards and forwards and backwards and every kinds of way in the world. So if you want to learn it, join my Patreon. I'll teach you how to play it. I do want to show you this, though. When I first wrote this song, that morning I was sitting around drinking some coffee, and I had the guitar laying flat in my lap. That's kind of like Jeff Healey used to play. And I think I'd been watching Andy McKee play over him and tapping on the neck with his fingers. And I was just sitting here fooling around, and I came up with this. And I had that lick, and I did it overhand like that, and the whole song was born out of that one piece. Sat down there and wrote it shortly after that, once I got all the music mapped out. So I just want to show you a bit of that. That's what we got in the skillet for Music Monday, a very cool tune I wrote called Everyday Prayer. Long time ago. Yeah, I said it was on my solo record, but those were just demos. I was learning how to use recording software, and the band's finally getting around to recording some of these, and some of them that I wrote a long time ago. I'm glad we're putting this one back out. Like, follow, by all means, share. And as Paul Harvey would say, now you know the rest of the story, and you certainly do.